The iron gates of the Thornfield estate opened with a whisper of wealth that Marcus had never experienced before. His worn leather shoes crunched against perfectly manicured gravel as he approached the mansion, a structure so grand it seemed to dwarf even his largest dreams. The morning sun caught the windows like diamonds, each pane reflecting a world he was about to enter but would never truly belong to. Marcus adjusted his tie, the same one he had worn to every job interview for the past 6 months. His hands, calloused from years of work that had nothing to do with butlering, smoothed down his jacket as he rang the doorbell. The chime echoed through halls he could only imagine. Mrs. Thornfield herself answered, her presence commanding even in the doorway. She was younger than he had expected, perhaps 40, with eyes that spoke of boardrooms and billion-dollar decisions. Her handshake was firm, businesslike. "Welcome to our home," she said, though her tone suggested this was more transaction than hospitality. "You come highly recommended." Marcus nodded, grateful that his previous employer had been generous with references despite his abrupt departure. The salary Mrs. Thornfield offered would finally allow him to provide properly for his own daughter, waiting back in their small apartment across the city. As Mrs. Thornfield led him through marble corridors lined with oil paintings worth more than most people earned in a lifetime, Marcus caught a glimpse of movement at an upstairs window. A small face peered down at him, curious and somehow lonely despite being surrounded by such luxury. "That is my daughter, Elena," Mrs. Thornfield said, following his gaze. "She is 8 years old and requires special accommodation." "Where in the world are you watching from right now?" Marcus thought to himself, wondering about the viewers who might understand the weight of new beginnings. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Chun, guided Marcus through his duties with the efficiency of someone who had managed wealthy households for decades. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, and her uniform was pressed to crisp perfection. "The family keeps to a strict schedule," she explained as they walked through the servants' quarters. "Mrs. Thornfield leaves for her office by 7 each morning and rarely returns before 9 in the evening. Miss Elena has her tutors and medical appointments throughout the day." Marcus nodded, taking mental notes as they passed through a kitchen that could service a small restaurant. The other staff members he met seemed pleasant enough, though there was an underlying tension he could not quite identify. "What about Elena's care?" Marcus asked carefully. Mrs. Chin's expression softened slightly. "The poor child spends most of her time alone in her room or the sunroom. The physical therapists come twice a week, but," she paused, lowering her voice, "there's been little progress since the accident 3 years ago." They climbed the main staircase, its banister polished to a mirror shine. Marcus noticed how the house, despite its grandeur, felt strangely hollow. No laughter echoed through these halls. No sound of running feet or playful voices. "Miss Elena is a bright girl," Mrs. Chun continued, "but she has become quite withdrawn. The doctors say her condition is permanent. Mrs. Thornfield has tried everything, spent millions on specialists, but nothing has helped." As they reached the second floor, Marcus heard the faint sound of classical music coming from behind a closed door. Mrs. Chin noticed his attention. "Elena loves music," she said with a sad smile. "It is one of the few things that still brings her joy. She used to dance before the accident. Now she just listens." Marcus felt a familiar ache in his chest, the same feeling he got when watching his own daughter struggle with challenges that seemed insurmountable to a child. Marcus began his duties the next morning with quiet efficiency, polishing silver in the dining room, when he heard the soft whir of wheelchair wheels across marble. Elena appeared in the doorway, her dark hair falling in gentle waves around a face that held intelligence far beyond her 8 years. "Good morning, Miss Elena," Marcus said, setting down his cloth and turning to face her properly. She seemed surprised that he had stopped his work to acknowledge her. Most adults in the house treated her like a piece of furniture to be worked around, never quite meeting her eyes. "You can call me Elena," she said softly. "Nobody really talks to me unless they have to." Marcus felt his heart contract at her matter-of-fact tone. "Well, Elena, I would be honored to talk with you whenever you like. What brings you to the dining room this morning?" She maneuvered her wheelchair closer, her movements practiced and graceful despite the mechanical nature of her mobility. "I heard Mrs. Chan telling you about me yesterday," she said without accusation. "About how I used to dance." "You love music," Marcus observed, remembering the classical melodies he had heard from her room. Elena's eyes brightened for the first time since he had arrived. "I do. Sometimes I close my eyes and pretend I am still dancing. My body remembers the movements, even if my legs do not." Her honesty was refreshing in a house where everyone seemed to speak in careful euphemisms about her condition. Marcus found himself responding with equal directness. "Music lives in the heart, not just the feet," he said. "I imagine you dance beautifully in your mind." Elena studied him with curious intensity. "You talk to me like I am a real person, not just someone to feel sorry for." "You are a real person," Marcus replied simply. "A very interesting one, for what I can tell." For the first time since his arrival, Elena smiled. The following Tuesday brought Dr. Harrison and his team of specialists for Elena's monthly evaluation. Marcus was polishing the banister when they arrived, their medical bags and serious expressions filling the entrance hall with clinical efficiency. Mrs. Thornfield emerged from her study, her business attire replaced by the careful composure of a mother bracing for disappointment. She greeted the doctors with the weary politeness of someone who had heard too many medical opinions. From his position on the stairs, Marcus could hear fragments of their conversation drifting from the sunroom where they examined Elena. The words were familiar to him, though he pretended to focus on his cleaning. "No improvement in sensation below the L2 vertebrae." Dr. Harrison's voice carried through the partially open door. "The muscle atrophy continues despite our efforts. I am afraid we must be realistic about expectations." Mrs. Thornfield's response was quieter, but Marcus caught the strain in her voice. "There must be something else we can try. Money is not an issue." "Mrs. Thornfield," the doctor said gently, "we have consulted with the finest neurologists in the world. Sometimes we must accept what medicine cannot change. Elena is a remarkable child, but her condition appears to be permanent." Marcus felt his jaw tighten as he listened to Elena's future being discussed as though she were not in the room. He knew that tone, the careful resignation that medical professionals adopted when they had exhausted their conventional options. After the doctors left, Marcus found Elena in her room, staring out the window with the blank expression of someone who had heard her limitations defined once again. Her small hands rested motionless in her lap, and for a moment she looked far older than her 8 years. "They think I cannot hear them," she said without turning around. "But I always do. They talk about me like I am already gone." Over the following weeks, Marcus began making small changes that no one else seemed to notice. When he cleaned Elena's room, he would adjust her wheelchair position to catch the morning sunlight that streamed through the tall windows. He moved her reading table slightly closer, angling it so she could reach her books more easily. During his afternoon duties, Marcus would pause to ask Elena about the novel she was reading or comment on the music playing softly from her speaker. These brief conversations became the brightest parts of both their days. One morning, Marcus brought Elena a book he had found in the mansion's vast library, a collection of stories about young inventors and scientists who had changed the world despite facing seemingly impossible challenges. "I thought you might enjoy this," he said, placing it within her reach. Elena examined the cover with interest. "Why did you choose this one?" Marcus smiled as he continued dusting nearby shelves. "Because I suspect you have the kind of mind that could change the world too, given the right opportunities." The comment was simple, but Elena felt something shift inside her chest. No one had spoken to her about possibilities in so long that she had almost forgotten they existed. "What part of this story touches your heart most?" Marcus wondered silently, thinking of those who might be watching and remembering their own moments of encouragement. Mrs. Chin noticed Marcus's attentiveness to Elena, but attributed it to professional thoroughness. The other staff members appreciated that Elena seemed less melancholy lately, though they could not pinpoint the reason. Marcus himself was careful not to reveal the growing conflict within him. Each day, as he observed Elena's condition with eyes trained to see what others missed, his professional instincts warred with his need to maintain his carefully constructed new identity. But increasingly, staying silent felt like a betrayal of everything he had once sworn to uphold. Late one evening, as Marcus polished the grand piano in the music room, Elena found him there. The house was quiet except for the distant hum of Mrs. Thornfield's conference call echoing from her study. "You used to do something else before this," Elena said, her observation cutting through the silence like a gentle blade. Marcus paused, his cloth hovering over the piano keys. "What makes you say that?" "The way you move your hands when you think no one is watching," she replied. "You touch things like you know them differently than cleaning them." Marcus felt exposed under her perceptive gaze. Children often saw what adults missed, but Elena's insight was particularly sharp. "I did have another profession once," he admitted carefully. "But sometimes life requires us to make difficult choices." Elena wheeled closer, her curiosity evident. "What did you used to do?" Marcus set down his cloth and turned to face her fully. He had not spoken about his past to anyone in months, but something about Elena's earnest interest made the words come easier. "I was a physical therapist," he said quietly. "I specialized in helping children who had been told they would never walk again." The words hung in the air between them like a bridge Marcus had not meant to build. Elena's eyes widened with understanding. "But you stopped," she said, not asking but simply stating what she could see in his expression. "I lost my license temporarily after my wife died," Marcus explained. "I made some poor decisions in my grief. I needed work immediately to support my daughter, so I became a butler." Elena absorbed this information with the gravity of someone far older than her years. "Your daughter," she said. "How old is she?" 10, Marcus replied, his voice softening. "Her name is Sarah. She thinks I work for a nice family who appreciates me." He had never intended to reveal so much, but Elena's genuine interest had unlocked something he thought he had sealed away. In the days following Marcus's revelation, Elena began opening up about parts of herself she had kept hidden from the medical professionals and even her mother. During quiet moments when he cleaned nearby, she would share memories that painted a picture of who she had been before the accident. "I used to love ballet more than anything," she confided one afternoon as Marcus arranged fresh flowers in her room. "I practiced every day for 3 hours. My instructor said I had natural grace." Marcus listened without the careful pity that others offered when Elena spoke of her past. Instead, he asked genuine questions about her training, her favorite pieces, the feeling of performing. "What was your favorite part about dancing?" he asked while adjusting the window blinds to reduce glare. "The moment when the music took over completely," Elena replied, her eyes growing distant with memory. "When my body knew exactly what to do without my mind having to think about it. Like the music was moving through me instead of me moving to it." Marcus understood that feeling, though from a different perspective. He had experienced similar moments in therapy sessions when everything aligned perfectly between therapist, patient, and recovery. "I still dream about dancing sometimes," Elena continued. "When I wake up, for just a second, I forget that I cannot feel my legs anymore." "Share your thoughts about second chances in life." Marcus thought silently, wondering about those listening who might understand the weight of lost dreams. Their conversations had become a sanctuary for both of them. Elena found someone who treated her memories with respect rather than sadness, while Marcus discovered a child whose spirit remained unbroken despite everything she had endured. But with each passing day, Marcus felt the burden of his knowledge growing heavier. His trained eye caught details that others missed, observations that whispered possibilities no one else was willing to consider. Marcus's trained eye began cataloging details that everyone else had either missed or dismissed as insignificant. When Elena shifted in her wheelchair during their conversations, he noticed the subtle muscle contractions in her lower back. When she laughed genuinely, there was a fleeting response in her hip flexors that lasted only milliseconds. These were not the signs of complete spinal severance that her medical record suggested. Marcus had seen true paralysis countless times during his career, and Elena's presentation told a different story to anyone who knew how to read the subtle language of the nervous system. During his cleaning duties, Marcus found himself positioning strategically to observe Elena during her physical therapy sessions. The therapists were competent but followed a maintenance protocol rather than an aggressive rehabilitation approach. They moved her legs through passive range of motion exercises, but Marcus could see they had long ago given up hope of actual recovery. The most telling moment came when Elena dropped her book while reading in the sunroom. Without thinking, she made an instinctive movement to catch it, a split-second attempt that involved muscles supposedly beyond her conscious control. She did not notice the movement herself, but Marcus saw it clearly. That evening, Marcus lay awake in his small servant's quarters, wrestling with a decision that could change everything. His professional knowledge screamed that Elena had been misdiagnosed or at least undertreated. The signs pointed to incomplete spinal cord injury with significant potential for recovery. But pursuing this conviction would mean revealing his identity and risking the job that supported his own daughter. He thought of Sarah, asleep in their modest apartment across the city, counting on his steady income. Then he thought of Elena, accepting a future that might not be as permanent as everyone believed. The weight of hidden knowledge was becoming unbearable. The crisis arrived on a Thursday morning when Elena experienced what the household staff called one of her episodes. Marcus was polishing silver in the dining room when he heard Mrs. Chin's urgent call for help from upstairs. He found Elena in her bedroom, her face pale and breathing labored. Mrs. Chun was on the phone with Dr. Harrison while Elena gripped the arms of her wheelchair, her small body trembling with what appeared to be muscle spasms. "It is happening again, Mrs. Chun explained to the doctor over the phone. "The same symptoms as last month." Marcus knelt beside Elena's wheelchair, his butler's facade slipping as his medical instincts took over. He observed her breathing pattern, the way her muscles were contracting, the specific areas where the spasms were occurring. These are not random seizures or panic attacks, as everyone assumed. Marcus recognized them as neurological responses that often preceded breakthrough moments in spinal cord recovery. Elena's nervous system was attempting to reconnect pathways, but without proper guidance. The signals were creating chaos instead of healing. Dr. Harrison arrived within an hour, his expression grave as he examined Elena. Marcus stood in the corner, officially invisible as household staff, while the doctor spoke in hushed tones with Mrs. Thornfield about increasing medications and considering more invasive surgical interventions. "We may need to discuss a more permanent solution," the doctor said carefully. "These episodes are becoming more frequent and could indicate deterioration." Marcus felt his professional integrity crack under the weight of what he was witnessing. They were preparing to treat symptoms of healing as signs of decline. Elena's body was fighting to recover, but they were about to medicate that fight into submission. Elena looked directly at him from her wheelchair, her eyes holding a trust that cut through his heart. She believed in him, even though she had no idea what he was truly capable of offering her. The decision crystallized in that moment. After Dr. Harrison left, Marcus found Mrs. Thornfield in her study, staring out the window with the exhausted expression of a mother who had fought too many battles. He knocked softly on the doorframe, his heart pounding with the magnitude of what he was about to risk. "Mrs. Thornfield, may I speak with you privately about Elena?" he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. She looked up, surprised by his formal tone. "Of course, Marcus. Please sit down." Marcus remained standing, knowing that what he was about to reveal would change everything between them. "Mrs. Thornfield, I have not been entirely honest about my background, and I can no longer remain silent about Elena's condition." Her eyebrows rose in concern. "What do you mean?" "I am a licensed physical therapist specializing in pediatric spinal cord rehabilitation," Marcus said, the words feeling both liberating and terrifying. "I lost my active status temporarily following personal difficulties, which is why I took this position. But my training and experience remain intact." Mrs. Thornfield stood slowly, her business instincts clearly assessing this unexpected revelation. "You have been observing Elena professionally." "Yes, and what I have seen contradicts the current medical assessment," Marcus continued. The episodes she experiences are not signs of deterioration. They are indications that her nervous system is attempting to re-establish connections. Her spinal cord injury appears to be incomplete, meaning there is significant potential for recovery that is being overlooked. Mrs. Thornfield moved to her desk, her fingers drumming against the mahogany surface as she processed this information. Why should I trust your assessment over Dr. Harrison and his team? Because I have spent 15 years helping children with similar injuries achieve what their doctors said was impossible, Marcus replied. If this story is touching you, let us know where you are listening from, he thought, wondering about those who understood the weight of professional integrity. The room fell silent except for the ticking of an antique clock. Mrs. Thornfield studied Marcus for several long moments, her sharp business mind weighing risk against possibility. Finally, she spoke with a measured tone of someone making a calculated decision. If you are wrong, you will have given my daughter false hope and wasted precious time, she said. But if you are right and I ignore this, I will never forgive myself. Marcus felt relief flood through him as she continued. You will work with Elena under my direct supervision. Any sign that you are causing harm, and this arrangement ends immediately. Within days, Marcus had transformed a unused wing of the mansion into a proper rehabilitation space. Mrs. Thornfield spared no expense in acquiring the specialized equipment he requested, from parallel bars to electrical stimulation devices. Elena's first session was tentative, both of them aware they were embarking on something that could change everything or break her heart completely. Marcus began with gentle assessments, his trained hands feeling for responses that previous therapists had dismissed. The breakthrough came during their third week of intensive work. Marcus was guiding Elena through supported standing exercises when he felt it, a deliberate muscle contraction in response to his verbal command. Elena, can you try to push against my hand with your right leg? He instructed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, barely perceptible but unmistakably intentional, Elena's leg pressed against his palm. I felt that, she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. I actually felt that. The next several weeks blurred together in a symphony of small victories. Each session brought new responses, stronger movements, increasing sensation. Elena's episodes, properly channeled through rehabilitation techniques, became stepping stones rather than setbacks. The day Elena took her first supported step, the entire household gathered to witness what everyone had been told was impossible. Her legs trembled with effort, but they carried her forward. 6 months later, Elena walked independently through the mansion's gardens, her steps sure and graceful as she moved among the roses her mother had planted in celebration of her recovery. The transformation had rippled through every corner of their lives, bringing warmth to halls that had once echoed with loneliness. Mrs. Thornfield approached Marcus as he watched Elena from the terrace, her expression holding a mixture of gratitude and determination that he had come to recognize. I have a proposition for you, she said. I want to establish a rehabilitation center, the most advanced facility in the country. I want you to run it. Marcus turned to face her, understanding the magnitude of what she was offering. The chance to return to his true calling, to help other children like Elena, to rebuild the career he thought he had lost forever. There is one condition, Mrs. Thornfield continued with a slight smile. Elena insists that the center include a dance studio. She wants to teach other children that movement is possible in many forms. As if summoned by their conversation, Elena appeared beside them, her face glowing with the confidence that had replaced her former resignation. Marcus taught me that healing is not just about walking again, she said. It is about remembering that we are capable of more than anyone tells us, including ourselves. Marcus thought of his daughter Sarah, who would soon join them at the new center where he could finally combine his professional passion with stable income. He thought of all the children who might benefit from Elena's story and Mrs. Thornfield's resources. The Thornfield Rehabilitation Center opened a year later, with Elena cutting the ribbon in a ceremony that drew families from across the nation. As Marcus watched children take their first steps in the facility's bright corridors, he knew they had created something extraordinary. Subscribe for more stories that remind us to never give up hope, he thought, grateful for the journey that had brought them all home.